Hello everybody, happy to be here. Brian Curley with Schmidt Curley Golf Design for the Ambien project, and just want to say I really would like to thank everyone with Van Fu Group and VNCI. It's been a very good and productive process, I think, to date. I think a lot of good work, a lot of good effort, a lot of back and forth, looking at different options, and I think where we are today is a good result of a lot of good effort that really does make the best use of the land and really does try to put, I think, the best program on the page. So I don't want to take too much time with some of the things that probably VNCI would probably get at. So I'm going to go through some of these things a little bit maybe faster. I'm going to try to leave some breaks for translation along the way, so I don't want to get talking too fast. But this general information, I'm sure VNCI can address properly. I do want to talk about this though, is when we get to the site itself, I think that it's important to note that some of the basic characteristics. Obviously, there's the main lake. What we really have are two parcels separated by the out parcel in the center, and when you do get a little closer detail, you can see that when you look at the topo, there's some significant terrain. It's not a horribly, terribly difficult site. Certainly have dealt with much more severe terrain. But I just want everybody to know that it's far from being flat. And in fact, from the lake elevation to the center high point that we've called out for the clubhouse is roughly about 40 meters of elevation change over not that long of a run. So you're really talking about an existing slope of about 4 or 5 to 1, which means most golf wants to occur on slopes of about 10 to 1 to get the ball to stop, get everything to work properly. So there is grading involved, and that's why it's very important that when you look at the property, when you're creating a plan, that you try to really concentrate working with the terrain. Obviously, we want to keep development up and golf low. That's a basic component with any plan, but it's very important here. So, without getting into too much detail, it is really important to address that the terrain is beyond flat, and it is something to deal with. And it does, you think this all would drain to the lake. It really doesn't. There's another slide later that shows the drainage patterns, but much of it drains to here, to the main lake, which does create some issues that we deal with and I can get to. So, as you can see on the overall drone flight shots here, it's a nice property, well located. I know Halong Bay well, obviously that region. Nicely vegetated, nice sized trees, good sized trees, tall trees, which gives you the impression that the terrain is actually more than it is at times. As you work your way further into here, you get a combination of things being a little more flattish in through here than really severe as we get out here. This parcel across the lake has a couple of pretty significant terrain areas as well. Good thing about that is it allows us to keep housing up for views. It will require some grading. So that's why it was really important that in the process that you try to find the best golf holes, create the best golf holes, the best golf course without undue damage to the property and having to remove too much. One of the really good things about the property is it basically orients north and south. Golf loves to be north and south because you don't get sun issues, playing golf holes into the sun or clubhouses looking to the sun, those kind of things. So the fact that the property is largely north and south is a really good factor in applying a master plan. Again, okay, so I wanted to address this slide here. I've done a fair amount around, we've done numerous courses around Asia for many years, 25 years now. Obviously, in the world golf market, U.S. is a dominant player, UK separate, second. UK where the game originated, but the USA has certainly taken over in a number of courses. But what's really, I think, important is to see where Vietnam is in the list of courses in Asia. China, you can see on here, China with roughly 500, used to be closer to 700. We've done about 50 courses in China alone, so we've done 10% of the courses in China if you go to these numbers. But what I wanted to get to from a brief comment on the marketing aspect is we've done a lot of work in Thailand as well, and right now Thailand has about 5 times the courses as Vietnam. I really firmly believe that for a number of reasons, Vietnam in time will overtake all of Asia as the #1 golf market for a number of reasons. But Vietnam has a better climate, better sites, and there's a energy that works when you have a lot of good golf courses together. Those traveling golfers go to one region, and as opposed to going flying around. So Vietnam is going to be able to offer fantastic golf, which will generate players, but certainly bring players in. But I do think right now a lot of the players that are going to Thailand pretty soon are going to start going to Vietnam, because what Vietnam is going to have to offer is going to be much better. Don't tell my friends in Thailand that. They wouldn't want me to hear that. We've done a lot of work there on some really good properties. And Thailand is a great place and a great market, but Vietnam does have the ability to overtake, especially Thailand. And then a lot of these other ones are just Malaysia, for instance, is like playing golf in a bathtub all the time. It's so wet. So I do think that in time, Vietnam is going to be the dominant player in the Asia region. Okay, in the master planning, I'm going to get to the plan later here, but there are some important things. When you have 2 courses, it's really important to try to have a consistency, but you'd like to have those courses be as different as possible, given the constraints of the property, given the terrain, given the climate, given everything that you have to deal with. You want to try to create 2 courses that do have their own identity. And I've always said, you'd love to have people go to the clubhouse and debate which one is best. And hopefully it's 50-50. You don't want one to be significantly better. So it's important that when you're laying the course out, you don't want, when you have 2 courses, you don't want all the good land to go to one course and have the other course have a less desirable piece of property. You really want to balance what you have to start with. And obviously here we have a certain amount of land that's on the lake and a certain amount of land that's not and is inland, but it's very important that you have a balance so that there isn't some, before you even get started, there isn't a dominant parcel that right off the bat, immediately makes one course most likely to be better than the other. That's part of the planning process. And obviously, as I mentioned, we want to find natural holes. We don't want to move a lot of dirt. We want to save trees. All of those things are obvious and what we've done. We also want to create not just 2 great golf courses, but a great golf community. So there's a relationship between golf and housing that you need to be aware of, and that's not just the relationship of a golf hole to housing, safety, but also circulation. so that circulation works for the housing without without a bad influence on the golf experience. So, so again, in the process, we went through. I just skipped past A, but we went through a lot of different options, and along the way, sometimes the property changed, which affected things. But there were certain things that held constant. One, there's this one road at the north half of the property we wanted to keep. Obviously the lake and how to best integrate it. Trying to find the existing high points so that the housing can be up and golf be down low. Knowing there's this future road to come. The fact the entrance comes from the south. This out parcel in the middle has caused a little bit of havoc along the way, but that's something I think that we've dealt with properly. And this other parcel across the way, and how to get to it and how to make it function and how to make it feel as if it's part of the whole community. And all of these plans are really very similar. In some cases, for instance, in this one, there wasn't a connection to get up into the from the existing road to the clubhouse area, and where this was largely golf. But in the plan we ended up with, what I'll show you, I think we have a good balance of golf, housing, circulation. So the point is, we did spend a lot of time and effort to come up with some different options. So where we are today, and I'll get into another little more detail. Part of it was trying to get, and you can see here, the residential areas, not only are they up, but they're a little more thin. There were times in trying to get a certain size area, the parcels were becoming a little too wide, and what we wanted to focus on was more long, narrow, skinny residential areas up high to create more frontage without losing the quality of the golf experience. And also, as I mentioned, there's a center line spine circulation, so you come from the south, come into the high point where the clubhouse is. There's a center line spine, that's the road there. Golf and some development, but that development is accessed from the center of the property, not just from the side. It's important that the whole project work together that way. And main access here, future access here, but we still do have access points that do come in. Maintenance area, certain things like that we have to work around. Another factor that we worked on as we went along was working around the existing grave areas. There are a lot of small dotted grave sites within the property that we've stayed away from for the most part, and then there's this one large one here in the center. Obviously the lake, in this plan we ended up with golf as a buffer to the lake. There's reasons for doing that that I'll talk about. This slide gets back to some of the differences in the plan. Again, some of at times the circulation didn't work as well, or again the parcels were maybe too big. But I think where we ended up with is a nice balance. So, as a general comment, that I think all plans are really very, very similar in a lot of elements. They both have a lot of north-facing holes. They both have the mountain view to the north from the clubhouse. The practice area is all in about the same place in each and every plan. They're both 36 holes. All the plans, and especially the final plan, has returning nines. That's a term we use where when you have 18 holes, you have the clubhouse in the center. You have 9 holes and 9 holes. So you play 9 holes, get to the clubhouse, play 9 holes, get back. And then the other same thing on the other. There's 9 holes and 9 holes. So it's kind of like a flower around the clubhouse. You have a petal of 9 holes, 9 holes, 9 holes, 9 holes. So you can play 9, you can play 18, you can play 27, you can play 36. As an operator, that's what you want. And normally gets more difficult when you get to more difficult terrain, but I think that we accomplished that well here. And I think that not only does this create a good balance of housing and golf, good quality golf, but also I think the operations have been addressed, and I think I'm very, very happy with where we ended up in that respect. And this has a lot to do with those first few options, and I was stating along the way, I think that ownership, if it were my project and I was an owner, I would focus on making sure that the development not only worked well in the final plan, but could be phased well. The infrastructure could be phased well. You can gradually work your way in from the entries as you work parcel by parcel. You can build 18 holes, you can build 27 holes, and you can build 36. You can build 36 at one time. But this plan has a lot of flexibility. Best master plans have flexibility in how they're built out. And I think that's one of the main thrusts and important elements of how we got to where we are with this. Again, north-south holes in golf. I think I'm very confident. I think that the quality of golf here will be fantastic. So, in the final plan, just to get a little bit into more detail, again, from the entry, we have golf along the lake, a combination of golf and some housing that's accessed from the center on the parcel to the west. Some of the plans were golf only over there, and this is where we ended up. And clubhouse essentially in the center. That gives us, we start off on the A course with, you have the practice area, which is close to the range. You come down from the range, practice area, north facing range, which is always the best, plays out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, and 9 comes back to the clubhouse as a par 3, which is fine. Don't let anybody tell you that's not good. That's totally fine. Some of the best courses in the world do that. And then you go 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and back 18. You'll notice that on this course here you see a lot more bigger expanses of bunkering. I'll get to that. Then the B course comes out at the clubhouse, comes 1, 2, 3, really dramatic long hole, par 3 over the water here that clips the water. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8. 8 being the par 5, long par 5 along the lake, should be really, really, really dramatic. 9 back to the clubhouse, marches its way up the hill. 10 tees off at the top of the hill, comes down, should be a really good hole coming to the lake. 11 is a par 3, that's how we get over the lake, is actually playing over it. And then, so that's 11 is the par 3, 12 is par 5, then 13, 14, 15, and then you come back to the house, you come back with a good 16, the par 5, 17, little short, drivable par 4 along this creek, and then 18 back. So again, you have all of the 9s returning. Maintenance area is accessed off the public road area, not interior to the gate, which is always preferred, and fairly centrally located. I mentioned the tomb areas we had to work around. But you can see, again, that the circulation is creating residential areas that are the proper dimension, not too big, and it creates more frontage. And all the circulation is very terrain responsive. We don't have roads going straight up and straight down hills, trying to work the contour. Okay, here we go, round 2. We ran out of memory on that card right there. So, anyway, back to what I was talking about on the master plan. I've talked about some of the basic elements. I do want to point out one thing. Normally at this stage of the game, in terms of just doing the master plan prior to getting into working drawings and more detailed design, the plan that's right here, that's illustrative, is usually just the strategy, the things that are shown are close, but they're not necessarily something that is totally relative to the property, because you don't really know the strategy, the bunkering, the shapes of things until you get further into it. But because the site, as I said, the site is pretty severe at times, I wanted to make sure that between the circulation, obviously, but also even the way the golf is represented, I wanted to make sure that it was closer to reality rather than just showing some images and then it all changes in time. So, like I said, normally at this stage of the game, you haven't gotten into the working drawing aspect, into the grading, into the additional plans that start to define what you can do. Normally it's just a pretty picture. But this is a pretty picture, but what I wanted to bring out was, in order to get to this, I did take a step that normally I wouldn't do at this process, was to do the beginning of a grading plan, a conceptual grading plan, because I wanted to make sure, before we got too far, that this plan in 2-dimension, with the thought of 3rd dimension, actually works when you do take it to plan. So I graded things out. This is just one sheet. I graded out the whole property, all of the golf, and started applying the bunkering and the strategy to the grades that I encountered and I was able to produce along the way. So this is a step that normally I would never do during the master planning phase. It's really part of the working drawing package, but I want, anytime you're dealing with a site that's not flat and not real simple, you have to make sure that what you show can be justified. So that's why I took this step right here that really is part of the next process. So, in getting a little further along here, hang on a second. Stop it. Okay, first technical glitch, but we're over that hump. So, this is the graphic that BNCI did for to show the land use. First, this reflects the A course. Again, entry, club, practice. What could be the first course if you decide to build A first, and the B course is screening back. Here's the B course. So you separate the two courses with the clubhouse almost on a north-south basis. This is a really important slide here that you may want to look into with some more detail. Obviously, a lot of the world drains to the lake, but you can see a lot of the property drains out away, not necessarily to the lake. The center part does get to the lake. These parts come down into here. But it's not the entire property that drains to the lake, because you do have those high points within the property, and they're going out, oftentimes off to the outside. And that was all dealt with in the planning process and in the grading process that I mentioned. Okay, so the A course, again, trying to get two different styles of courses. The terrain where the B course is, which happens to have a little bit more of the housing because there are more of the high areas and it has the lake, is a little bit more severe. The A course, the northern, gives us a little bit more opportunity to have a more relaxed, graded type of golf course. So therefore, I felt that if in distinguishing, in doing two styles of courses, the terrain of the A lent itself to one style, the terrain of the B a little something different. The A being something that I see as being a little more natural, the B as something that I see being a little bit more formal. So both courses, by the way, they're both par 72. They're both roughly 7,100, 7,200 yards. Par and scorecard, not an issue. It's really more important to have good variety in the golf holes themselves. So on the A course, as far as imaging goes, I felt that because there are these little bit more ability to have more flattish areas, we can do a lot of these more expanses of sands with islands and things like that, rather than more formal golf that you see on a typical golf course. Because what defines a golf course is not really what you do with the turfed area, it's what you do in the area that surrounds the turf area. That's what frames the hole, that's what gives strategy. But if you can incorporate that in a manner that makes interest, but also makes it easy to play. Both courses have a very, very, very strong insistence on finding your ball. Nobody likes to play courses where you lose a lot of golf balls. Courses can be difficult, they can be tough, they can be hard to play, or they can stress the player. That's all great. That's what the player wants. They want to go out and be challenged. But I always think that it's important to bring the visuals, but do so where you can find your ball. So in the A course, again, in being different, being more natural versus the B being more formal. Big things here is these transitional edges. You can see this is not a formal bunker in that there isn't grass all the way around it. Here, the outside world, in this case this rugged look, comes into the outside edge of the bunkering. We call that transitional bunkering. Here you can see this is more of a formal bunker because it has grass all around it. But we also have, as opposed to a formal shaping of the bunkers, you can see that there are at times more of a jaggedy kind of edge. It looks a little bit more eroded and a little bit more natural. So between the edges and the shaping of the bunker, you get a little bit more of a natural look. Same thing here. You can see the natural edge coming in. It's a big, big bunker as opposed to having, say, 1, 2, 3 bunkers like this. There's a formal bunker, but you can see for the most part the idea is to be transitional, certainly here. But nice big wide fairways. Find your ball. We're going to have, at times, we're going to have plenty of width, and you want to use that to your advantage when you can. Again, these are images of a more natural style of look. Again, large expanses of sand at times, and you can see that reflected on the plan. In this case, we have islands. This is, of course, we did in Mission Hills, China. It's Golf World's, it was in Golf World's Top 100. And you can see how there's this integration of formal and more of a transitional and natural type of look, again, coming in from the sides. This image shows how some of these out of play areas, and we have to be careful, and I really mean out of play, we don't want to have a lot of lost balls. This is Bahia grass, so it's a little bit taller, but this works well in the climate that we're dealing with there. But you can see a lot of drama. It's actually not that challenging of a hole. It's very dramatic off the tee, which I think a good golf hole is very dramatic off the tee, but when you play through it, you realize it's not as tough as it might look. Again, you can see how even behind the green, the outside world comes in, and you can see the turf line is really, really meandering. It moves in and out. It's not like bowling alleys. Same thing here. You can see the outside world comes in. Again, ground covers, non-turf areas. We're going to have a lot of slopes that we don't want to have to maintain in turf. They'll be difficult to mow. So we need to think about transitional areas. Also a way to hold down and collect rain and keep things in place, but not have to maintain them as turf areas. Marshy type areas, wet areas, we want to keep on this course is to, again, the intention to be more natural. This is Mission Hills, Haikou, China. This is a key component, I think, in differentiating the two courses. I call them mini fairways, tee complexes that are not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individual tees, but almost like shaped up like a small little fairway, and you place the blocks where you want, and it just gives you a totally different look from what is typically seen in golf, and certainly can be a different look from the second course here. Centerline plays, tees, things around, grown around tees. Just a little bit more of a natural look, but I call it a clean, natural look. It has a natural edging, but it's otherwise a very clean and maintainable looking kind of property. Times little backstops around greens, big fall-offs around greens. You don't have to have bunkers everywhere. Just steep turfed areas often are enough of a challenge like that as well. Again, transitional, you can see most of that is just natural, and the golf just weaves its way in. Again, kind of eroded, kind of scraggly. Again, the outside world transitions. In this instance, it's a pretty flat green. You want a good variety of greens. You want some flat, you want some more dramatic. Again, the natural edge, same thing here. This is from China. You can see it's a little bit more of it's almost like a formal bunker, but with a natural edged type of look. This is one, probably best golf course in the world, Pine Valley in the US. You can see how natural that is, but at the same time, the playing field, the area you play on, is very accommodating. So it's that yin-yang combination that we're fighting for here. This is Mission Hills as well. This shot, this image is probably very similar to what we would probably encounter here. But again, the big bunkering, the transitional edges, in this case the islands, but back into that is your typical golf hole. And it's how we're framing these golf holes is what's important. Again, big, large bunkers, stands of trees, similar to what we would have here. This is a good image that shows that relationship of how turf and non-turf areas can work together to create an environment that isn't like bowling alley golf. The B course would be more formal. Again, you can see here, this is more of your traditional look of what you see around golf courses, around certainly around Asia, certainly around Vietnam. We want to do that more formal style, but I do want to make sure that we push the needle and we don't just do the same thing you've seen all over the rest of the golf world there. Again, the B course, you come out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8's along the lake, and 9 comes in. And then from 9 right to 10 tees. You play 10 over the lake, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Again, the dominant element of this course is there's more terrain, it's more severe, there's certainly more slope, but also has the lake element, so we want to work that in. As far as images go, you can see that now the course is starting to get a little bit more of a cleaned up formal look. In this case, it's a nice clean lip, doesn't have that scraggly edge look, it's not eroded looking, and it's not transitional. You can see outside of the bunkers is all turf. The surrounds of the golf hole is turf area as opposed to the natural area. Now, when we're doing those transitional areas, that's why you have the bigger bunkers, because those transitional areas are further away and you're not hitting your ball into the transition area. You're hitting the ball into sand. Here, a missed shot goes on turf. But again, very simple, in this case, a very clean line. This is Riviera in the USA. Occasionally, you can have some big fingers. These are used for walk-ins, especially, they're great. And the players, if they come down a little lower, a player can get in and out, and they're not tempted to walk up the face of the bunker. Now, this is what we call a flashed sand face. You can also have a face of the bunker where the grass comes all the way down. Again, they both fall into that formal type of treatment. In this case, the sand is flashed. In this case, the sand comes all the way down. This is what we call flat-bottomed grass face. This is a real big dramatic face, which we probably would do in some instances. But I wanted to point out here, you can see how there are lows, drains that are being incorporated, and it's important that you do that along the lake. That's why I felt that the B course, because it relates to the lake, we have to pick up drainage before it goes to the lake. So we have to have a style of design that incorporates drains. Again, this is very formal, clean. Turf all the way around. Still has drama, but a cleaner type of look. Just because you're formal doesn't mean you don't, on occasion, you can still have these natural landscaped areas, especially on a par 3, hitting over something. Especially when it's great, when it's a center line. People love to hit over things like that. But again, formal here, but you can see there's that transition area. But the transition edge of this isn't a transition edge of the bunker, it's a formal bunker. Again, formal bunkering. In this case, the outside edges are grasses. Totally formal bunkering. Although this is largely grass face, slightly flashed, but that's probably a very good indicator of what we could do here. Old school courses have this look. This is old school outside of London. Still, it's a natural course, but it has this formal bunkering. Again, this is another one where the bunkering is flat bottom, grass face, contained lows to pick up drainage along the lake. And the next one shows you here you got the lake. This water that comes down flows out and gets picked up in a drain. So before it goes to the lake, you pick it up in a drain, you take it to a pump, and you send it back to the irrigation lake. But again, this also is good, and it's good for your region there in that with the grass face and the flat bottom, you don't have erosion on the face when there are big washout rains. Same thing here. When a big rain hits this style of design, there isn't as much sand to deal with, so you do get the ability to deal with the rain. But you can see that's an entirely different look from that big sandy expanse in islands that I was showing for the A course. Again, grass-faced. Grass-faced. Okay, some details that I want to talk about. I think it's important to incorporate some features that people talk about. This is a little tiny pot bunker, Pine Valley, called the Devil's Asshole. It's impossible to get out. Everybody in the world wants to go play this golf hole because of that feature. You don't have to have them everywhere, you just need a few. Centerline bunkering, offset fairways. The fairways, rather than bowling alleys like this with bunker, bunker, green, bunker, bunker, you have the fairways work their way in and out and offset that you have to hit over these bunkers or play away from. Golfers love that. Around the club area, nice, really good, dense vegetation, clean. As you get further to the course, that can change. It's nice to have some really fantastic wild features. This is St. George's in London, in England. Big hill that you have to hit up and over. People love this kind of stuff. You can't do it every hole, but you can do it at times. Movement in the fairways, really important. Sometimes the fairways can be fairly flat, but sometimes you can have big dramatic movement. Balance. Having a lot of different things is key. Sometimes instead of just having a bunker that goes down, you actually go up with something. In this case, it's heather. You can find your ball in that. But the point is, in this image, you can see the hole is very flat, but the hazard itself is something that pops up. Real close green to tee relationships, as much as possible. And again, as far as having a wild feature, this is Pine Valley. This is called Hell's Half Acre. It's a big, huge expanse of sand. And you play a par 5, it's a par 5. You hit here, then you hit your second shot over. And people love this stuff. They play from all over the planet. Palm groves to help make a different landscape treatment in some areas. Again, this really shows the transition, and then that's more of a formal treatment. And you can see how the turf lines are really irregular. They're not like bowling alleys. Sometimes you can go up with bunkering, like I showed before. Fairways down and below, and you can play around it, or you can hit over it. You don't want 18 blind holes, but having a blind shot on occasion is a good thing. Again, this calls out the transitional treatment, transitional width, open access into the greens. You can have big drama, but you want to have the average player be able to play. Again, centerline hazards. These are the mini fairway tee complex. But lots of stuff between you and the hole, but still make it accommodating. Again, around the tee areas, tees don't need to be boring. Tees need to be exciting. And you need stuff around the tees to drive the player's interest. You're not hitting it into that. Same thing here. It's not, you don't just need turf all the way around, and plus we have slope we want to deal with landscaping, rather do landscaping than turf. The greens themselves, this is very extreme. This is St. Andrews, where they're really big and they have crazy movement, but you do want a good variety of greens. We're going to incorporate creeks at times, and they're shown on a few of the holes here. You can see on the plan, there's like 3A, between 3A, 4A, coming down the stretch, 17, there are some opportunities for creeks. And when we do these creeks, you don't want to maintain the banks. You'd like to have them natural as much as you can, as long as you're not creating a real big lost ball impact. This hole, in terms of having something different, has a bunker actually in the middle of the green. This is Los Angeles Riviera. This is a crazy green, North Berwick, Scotland, one of my favorite courses, but this is actually green surface, dips down to green surface. Shaved areas around the greens. And again, you don't have to have bunkers everywhere. That's difficult enough. And the average player loves this because they're not in another bunker. They can actually putt from here if it's not too wet. Nice big fall offs at greens at times. Again, sometimes they can be flattish, sometimes they have humps in the greens, and sometimes they have drops in the greens. Again, variety. The edges of our areas, wet areas, we'd like to have natural, even to the extent of doing something like this where we could have rock, but certainly introducing more natural creeks and lake edges. This is a good image of 8 on the B course, and again, we're going to have to pick up drainage before it goes, and we're also going to have to deal with the edge of that lake treatment, which we can discuss more, but these are some concepts they can, again, this is 8, goes back 9, 10, 11 on the B clubhouse here. Again, 8, 9. Again, we tried to keep the housing areas, these are all up, the golf is down low, and the streets meander to fit the terrain. I'm going to get to some of these. This is an image of the practice area. That could be, if you want a covered area, a practice area. As far as character for the planning of the course. Okay, so on some details. Bridges. This is Augusta, iconic image. Everybody's seen this photo. It's very famous. The bridges at Augusta are very famous. You can see they're not really detailed engineering. These are just steel culverts that they backfill in rock face. They're not expensive to build, but very dramatic. Okay, part 3. So bridges. Bridges are an important image to the golf course. They helped to create an image. They're necessary elements, and you can do them cheap and make your golf course look cheap, or you can do a little bit of design to them, and you start to create an image that people really notice. So. Okay. Again, on bridges, in this case it's a walking bridge. We might have some that are walking only, but for the most part we're going to have bridges that need to be walking and cart path. Not a lot of them, but you can get, and then getting back to what I was talking about before, you can see this is very natural, but this is a flat bottom bunker, grass faced, and more of the look that we would probably see on the B course. A big span bridge that we probably would see on 11B to get over that main body of the lake. Again, bridges are important. This one actually is wood planks. This is a bridge we did in the past. It's actually a railroad car that we painted on the side. The inspiration coming from another one. This is a Pete Dye course that we worked on long ago. But you actually drive through the railroad car. And again, it's one of those things that people talk about and they come back, oh, I love that. And it's just, you need to think about things that people see as being different. This is actually a railroad car as well, a flatbed that just doesn't have the box, but it has the cart path on top. But you span, you just literally drop the railroad car onto headers. Rock walls are going to be a really important discussion along the way, along the main lake, and also interior to all the holes wherever we have any kind of waterways, especially on the lake where we can have fluctuation of water levels. If water level comes up and down in this, it's okay. But if it were sand or grass or anything else, it turns into dirt and doesn't look good. So we need to think about how we deal with water levels without having problems. This is Mission Hills. This is probably a good image of what we would probably end up with, but again, rock wall. This is a pond that remains at that elevation. This is probably a good image to show, again, this lake does go up and down a fair amount, and we're able to handle that with vertical rock edges. And you can see that the need for rock edges could be significant at times as we get further into the process. This shows the two gates to come. As we start to talk about gates, this is a little sequence on some of the imaging that goes along with the community aspect. Again, it's really important that as you enter into the project, it feels grand and elegant, and you spend some money there because that impacts the whole community. Going to housing, not just going to housing, going to the golf, everything. Sometimes it incorporates gates, not so much in Asia. A lot of times it's just a guard on duty. Also, look at changing the pavement rather than just being asphalt. At times, you can use concrete blocks, pavers. They're not horribly expensive, but they give you a rich feel at the entry. How you break that up and incorporate signage, lighting, those are all really important things. This is a real dense entry. This is actually the way you drive in. You go actually through the building to get in. Very unique. Indicates lower density. This one a little more wide open. Again, this is more of an entrance into a more secluded area. It could be a more high-end VIP housing area that wants its own character. That's actually a gate inside the gate. This is actually a project, a really high-end project in the Palm Springs area. All the movie stars live here. It doesn't even have signage. It's so exclusive looking. Then this is a very small scale into a small community that is more in keeping with the price point being lower. Some images on the way roads are dealt with. This is just road, no sidewalk. Sometimes you can have a median like this. You usually don't see that in Asia much, but it does bring a different character. Curb, let's call it a rolled curb as opposed to a hard 90-degree curb. It's just a different look. It functions, but is a softer look. Sidewalks. Again, pavers for driveways make a difference. Pavers, rock, stone. As you go from asphalt to that, it indicates a little richer of a feel. Nice landscaping along the roads. Clubhouse character, and I'll go through these quickly. There's a big variety and size. We're all over the map here. But again, what you'll see in common here is, in this case, they're up higher. They usually dominate the skyline. This is Florida, something that probably could work in Asia. This is Hawaii, where the stone is plentiful, wouldn't work here. This is Riviera in Los Angeles, again, high above the hill like we would be here. And this is the 18th hole playing back. And that's your big view as you finish. So the nice thing about having the clubhouse in the center and up is you're going to get this kind of a finish as you come down the stretch. You may not have that look of a building, but you're probably going to have a massing that's similar to that. This is old school. This is Muirfield in Scotland. Again, old and different. This is a Florida look, which may work in this environment. Again, the palm trees, that's old Scotland. This is old outside of London. But important thing here, I think the way the patio area and where the pedestrian area and the way it relates to putting greens and that whole image of the back outside of the clubhouse is important. Real strong and sturdy. This is outside London. Sunningdale, one of the best places in the world, but more like a house than a clubhouse. And that's a lot of the great courses have clubhouses more than just big buildings. Again, terrace, important. Old, and these are probably not as applicable, almost a castle type of a look. But what you can see is evident in all these is to be high and above. This is the California Club in San Francisco area. This is something that could work. Again, big and expansive. It looks old, but it still has modern feel about it in the way it works. This is an old clubhouse Marion. But again, it's the patio terrace area, the way it works and relates to golf. Not as important in that environment because people tend to want to get inside, but the outdoor environment is really important in golf. Again, some smaller examples. This is Singapore, and probably maybe possibly something that could work here. But again, this is all covered, but that's all the terrace area. That's where everybody hangs out. Certain people want to be inside, but golfers have been outside all day. They're just looking for shade, and this is the active place that you see in most clubs. And in this case, this is Sentosa in Singapore. A little more smaller scale, really rugged and rustic. Clubhouses are all over the map. This one I wanted to show. This is the Nanea in Hawaii. This is the award-winning clubhouse. Really odd and strange, but it functions really well. But it creates all these great outdoor areas and very nice landscape. Great views. And again, we're on top of the hill. Old. This is in Long Island. This is one of the most expensive per square meter clubhouses I've ever seen. Just crazy. All stone and really great detailed wood. Unbelievable. LA Country Club. Clean and modern, simple, small, simple. And this could be something that you can use even for maintenance areas. Rock and stone, probably not the call there. That's Sunnydale. One thing we talked about in the master planning is what you do. There's golf, there's the housing. It's how you do integrate trails, sidewalks, because people do want to get out and about. Not everybody lives there as a golfer, but they do want to get the outdoors, so it's important you have sidewalks and great landscaping. The landscaping theme, this is from one of our courses in Thailand, probably very similar to what we would have here. Again, I'd rather see most of the water features, the edges be more natural. You want good variety of plant material. You want nice density around the clubhouse of plant material. You want paths to work their way through and not just be a cart path, but have it go through something that feels garden-like. Not just trees, not just turf, but that intermediate shrub area is really important. Color is important. Again, this is actually a halfway house with hanging gardens. Color, again, density, color. It's expensive to get there, but you can start with small material and it's fine. But a variety, density, and color. Even this is a custom home, but again, that makes a difference walking into something that's just flat and uneventful. Again, variety, density. This is a cart path that goes down and under, a tunnel underneath the road. So it doesn't just have to be an engineered wall, it can be pretty. It can be hanging gardens like this, and it can be a nicer experience. Signage, I'll go quickly through this. Signage is important, not just during the day, but how it is at night too. A lot of people don't think about how signs work at night. Gates and such. Again, staggered landscape. You're going to have a lot of hills. You're probably going to have a lot of rock walls incorporated. This kind of a thing is probably something that you were able to be able to see. So, in summary, I'm really excited about everything to date. I think that the community's looking good. I think the golf's looking good. I think we're on the right track of creating the best golf, the right track of creating distinct golf, and I think at this point I'm really excited that we're going to create a wonderful project that's successful for golf, successful in the housing area, and is an overall successful project. And I'd like to thank everybody involved to date. I think it's gone very smoothly, and I'm really happy and content. Thank you.